Survive and Advance on the Girly True Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by the Sheridan Report. I'm your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, who you can also hear as a co-host of the NASCAR show, which is on thegirlytruth.net right now with Alex Gray. Help me welcome to the show, 1981 national champion, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
I'm going to tell you what, Mike. Last night was better than sex. We got to see the twin 125s. We got
Obviously, Tia's not there with you right now.
The new model of cars. We got to see how these cars are going to line up and what kind of favor they're going to play to each other. The Fords are going to get a pretty big advantage over the Chevrolets and the Toyotas this year. So that was great. That was really good. We finally got I'm out in Los Angeles. We got the LA Open going today. Tiger just teed off, and he stunk it up on the first hole, but that's not unusual for Tiger either.
Well, so you know for future reference, Steve, just because I bring up the fact you're on a NASCAR show doesn't give you privilege to talk about it on our main show.
Why not?
Because half the people just turned it off.
But half the people probably came on. I mean,
the people who stayed
this morning.
Brian Rauf.
Okay. All right. Well, yes, Brian is a legend, and I love Brian, and it's fine. Right. But we can get the other stuff out of the way first. And you asked me how I'm doing. I'm telling you, it's getting sunny and beautiful in LA. The tour's playing out here right now. I'm looking at the beach. God, that's Manhattan Beach. My son works there. Holy cow. Why am I sitting in here talking to you guys? I'm an idiot. Go ahead, move on.
Because you're too old to walk the beach. And, of course, as always, from Fansided and Busting Brackets to talk a little college basketball, we've got Brian Rauf. How you doing, Brian?
I'm great. Sounds like you guys got a lot going on, too.
No, it just Steve thinks in Steve's head a lot of things go on. Not in real life, but in Steve's head, he's a busy
Valentine's
man.
Day yesterday. You know what? When you're married 35 years, doing something unique for Valentine's Day is not easy. And I'm still pissed off about the Westminster Kennel Dog Show. I have a bone to pick with those idiots.
Okay. Yeah,
I am really. We're going to do a show on this.
No, we're not, because nobody will listen to it, because nobody cares, because it's just a bunch of rich people.
I don't care. I have the privilege of talking about things.
It's just rich people that mutilate dogs, Steve. You're all right with cutting ears off and tails off.
No, I'm not okay. I hate. No.
When you watch it, you support it, so that means you support it. I'm very pissed off at Westminster Kennel Dog Club and the AKC Brian,
for how that went down.
Brian, do you think it's sad that a grown man who's like 60 years old is upset about a dog show with a bunch of rich people who mutilate dogs?
Brian, if you say yes, Brian, I will cut you off right now. I will hit the red stop button.
Because once again, I'm the only one with any buttons to cut anybody off. When Steve says he's going to cut you off, that means in Steve's head, Steve's going to stand up and Steve's going to walk away and take his headset off. You'll still be allowed to talk, Brian. The beauty of it is you'll actually be the person that's cut off.
They set an opening date for the Brady House to be open now.
Steve's not even going to let you answer about a dog show. He's going to talk about a Brady House.
All right, Brian, answer about the dog show. Brian, what's your opinion on the dog show?
I had no idea.
Did Colton get screwed
this week? I had no idea it was this week, so I have no idea.
See, you guys, on your limited knowledge of sports, like
That's
basketball, football, boxing, you've got to broaden your horizons and look at other sports.
That's not
the greatest thing happening in sports this weekend is NASCAR. It's the Daytona 500.
I know it'll do much bigger ratings than Duke in North Carolina. So.
Oh,
you're right.
Who cares? Duke's going to crush them. Where's the game being played at?
In North Carolina.
Okay. No shit, Sherlock.
Well, you ask. I mean, moron. If you'd have prepped for the show,
would it be
all
on Tobacco Road?
It was. If you knew
where, it be Chapel Hill?
If you would have prepped it all for the show, you would know where the game was being played.
I'm looking at Tuesday scores right now. So let's move on.
All right,
Go ahead.
Let's start
Brian,
off with Tuesday. The Duke Blue Devils come from 23 down to beat the Louisville Cardinals. Does this tell us that Louisville's a player here, or does this just tell us that Duke's going to be damn near impossible to beat, Brian?
Both. I think the big takeaway, obviously, is that Duke is pretty much impossible to beat. They were on the road against the number 16 team in the country, and Louisville legitimately a top 20 team, and have gotten vastly outplayed for 31 minutes, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. They still – it took them 9 minutes to erase a game's worth of work from one of the better teams in the country. And I think that just kind of shows that, Duke only has to play well for 9-10 minutes in a game, and they can still win. And obviously they're going to play better for longer periods of time than that. But they showed this special gear that they have that I don't think anybody has really shown since maybe the Anthony Davis Kentucky team that won the championship in 2012, or maybe even the other Kentucky team that almost went undefeated, lost to Wisconsin in the Final Four. There are very few teams that have that gear that nobody else can touch. And Duke showed that they have that gear.
Well, I don't know if I've seen a team that had that gear like this since Duke in 1992 and 93, or 91 and 92. I mean, because that was a team full of guys that were complete studs also. Grant Hill, guys like that, Christian Laettner. This is possibly the most talented team we've seen in a couple decades, I think.
I think that's fair. And what they showed, too, part of it, I think, is what I've said with Louisville, that they're a really good team and Chris Mack has been really well coached, but they don't have the talent level to compete with some of these better teams that they'll face in bigger games, or as they, maybe win a game or two in the tournament. And that lack of go-to guy or talent level or what have you played a role in their collapse, but also just focusing on Duke. I think you're right. Even the gears that those Kentucky teams showed that I mentioned, I would still take Duke and just gear that they showed that they have kind of in their arsenal, in their back pocket, over those Kentucky teams. What they did was phenomenal.
Yeah. And, Steve, what's your take on Duke?
My take on Duke is this. It's just multifaceted in the fact that Duke is a team that probably the only team that's going to beat Duke is Duke. They're going to beat themselves if they lose. And this is what I go back to all the time about, and I've harped on this all college basketball season. This is when great coaches start to rise, cream rises to the top, and great coaches, and Coach K is finding a way to win these games, and you're going to see Izzo. I know Izzo struggled through a 3-game span there, and you're going to see the great coaches now start to really elevate the teams. Villanova's coming on strong all of a sudden and making great inroads, and Jay Wright. And you're going to see the coaches start to become the MVPs of these teams real quick. I like that. I don't want to take anything away from Louisville. And when I look at what Chris Mack has done at Louisville in this season versus what, say, Archie Miller has done at Indiana, there's like no comparison. I mean, both of them kind of came into similar situations. And Louisville's the real deal. They're going to be a team you don't want to play in the tournament, in my eyes. And certainly when Indiana beat them earlier in the year, this is not the same Louisville basketball team that Indiana played when they beat them back in, I think it was November. They played them and beat them November, early December, 1-2. Yeah, it's not the same basketball team. And this is the influence of another great basketball coach in Chris Mack. And it's coaching starts to play a role in what goes on right now. I think Duke's the team to beat, but I think there's other teams that are starting to rise to the occasion now, and it's going to be a really fun, wide-open tournament, in my opinion.
All right, and now we're going to go to the SEC, where the LSU Tigers, as I told Steve when he told me I was stupid and this would be a blowout, beat the Kentucky Wildcats at UK. I know there was a controversial call in this game, Brian, but the thing that stands out to me is the UK pretty much dominated the first half. LSU came back and beat them at Kentucky. I think this team is better than what a lot of people give them credit for.
I agree. I've been saying all year that this LSU team has been one to watch out for. I think the scary thing about their performance and the way they played against Kentucky was the fact they didn't play that well. Yep. They didn't shoot the ball super efficiently. As you said, they got Kentucky kind of had their way in the first half. This LSU team could play a lot better than what they showed. And it's one of the reasons why I think they're a dark horse Final Four team.
Yeah, and the other thing that stands out to me is they get 23 points off the three guys off the bench. And we've talked about teams like Indiana and stuff, but they had Williams, Smart, 12 and 8, almost double figures from two guys on the bench. And this is not a team. I mean, this is a team from when I watched them play. They play really well together. They've got a first-year head coach. I think he's first year, isn't he?
It's his second year.
Second year coach. And I think what he's done there is comparable to what Mac has done in Louisville.
It's impressive. I mean, this is kind of, I think, the trajectory we thought Mac would be on, because Will Wade came in and LSU outperformed expectations but still made the NIT, and then brought in a great recruiting class. A lot of the guys were on full display last night, or Tuesday night when they beat Kentucky. And it took them a little bit to gel together early in the season, as you would expect from a team that's so young. But now he has all the talent, and he has them playing at this high level. And I think I don't know if we'll see LSU continue on this trajectory, but they're going to be a team, as long as Will Wade's there, that looks like that's going to be around at the top of the SEC every year.
Yeah, so Steve, what do you think of LSU?
Yeah.
Says you question their coach's ability to coach on the last show.
No, well, okay, Mike, here's the thing.
You did.
I know.
Okay.
All right, and what I'm learning here after working with you for a year and a half is just to stop arguing with you and betting against you, because you somehow methodically get this crap right more times than you should. So you're either a genius or you're damn lucky. I don't know what it is. I haven't figured that out yet.
We all know what it is, Steve.
We all know what it is, right? And I respect you for that. I think LSU is a front-running team that's good. They're very,
okay.
But
a front-running team is down 8 at Kentucky at halftime and then comes back and wins.
No,
that's the very definition of a front runner. You're right.
There's no pressure. There's no pressure on them to do anything right now. Their front-running team means that they just are there, and everybody's like me, be skeptical of this team, and they're playing with free will and playing great basketball. They've got a young coach, but let's see what happens in the tournament. I mean, it gets different in the tournament, Mike, and I've played in the tournament.
Well,
3 years.
Steve.
Out of the 4 years I was in college, I played in them. It gets a lot different in that point in time, and one and done changes a lot of things. I need to see some tournament success before I'm going to put my heart and soul into LSU. Great, they beat Kentucky. I think the Kentucky team is overachieving right now. This is not one of the strongest teams that Calipari's put on the floor. He's got him playing well. He's probably doing one of his better coaching jobs that he's done in a while. But right now, if UK played LSU, in the tournament, would you bet on LSU, Brian?
Yes.
Would you bet on LSU in the tournament? You would.
I would. Yeah.
Both of you would. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. All right. Well, I would say no. I would say I would not, because Kentucky's been there, done that. Calipari's been there, done that. This coach has not been there, done that.
When did this team get there and do that?
Who?
Kentucky. They haven't been there and done that.
They've got more national championships than Indiana.
What the hell does that have to do with anything? That's like saying Indiana will be tough if they get in a tournament because they won the national title in 1940.
They'll be a little bit more feared than,
they won't.
Other teams
they
play.
Won't. I mean, I don't know why they
Yeah,
would
they
be.
will.
Okay, what did Kentucky
Well, they
do
would
last
be.
year in the tournament?
It's Indiana. On the jersey it says Indiana.
Okay.
Let's not talk about
cares.
Indiana right now.
We're not. We're talking about Kentucky.
I think LSU, I mean, it's a great win for LSU. I think it changes the dynamics a lot for the SEC. It sends a message to UK that you're not going to run away with this thing. But I still think that UK, and we've got a big contest coming up, which, Brian, I'm sure you'll talk about. I think, doesn't UK play Tennessee this weekekend?
Yeah, Kentucky.
We'll get to that. But I think it changes the dynamics a lot. UK, it's a great win for LSU. It makes a statement win for them, and it puts them, to me, more on the map than they were for me last week when you and I had a discussion when I didn't think they were relevant. They are relevant. It's a good basketball team, but I need to see teams perform in crunch time, tournament situations, one-and-done situations before I'm going to sit there and say, I'm going to endorse this team. I have not seen that out of LSU yet. Let's see. Great. All indicators are pointing in that direction. But I've got proofs in the pudding, in my opinion.
When it comes to the SEC race, I think it's important to note that the only time Tennessee and LSU will play this year is on February 23rd, I believe, which might be a Wednesday or Thursday. It's the only time they'll play this year, and it's at LSU. It's the only game left LSU has against a team who's currently ranked. And Tennessee, 6 of their last 7 games, basically until the SEC tournament, are against teams who are firmly in the NCAA tournament field or projected to be firmly in the NCAA tournament field. So LSU has a really easy schedule, and Tennessee is facing the hardest part of theirs coming up. So we could see a situation where that game between the two of them could decide who wins the SEC.
It's a statement game. It was a statement win for them, big time. And they did that at Rupp Arena, didn't they? Didn't they win at Rupp?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where Kentucky
Yeah, I mean, they went into Rupp, and I'll tell you what, I played at Rupp Arena. It's not an easy place to play at. I mean, it's a vicious basketball barn. And for LSU to go do that, Mike, I give you props. LSU elevated. They're a player now. They're definitely, they made their statement. It's a statement win. They're in the game. Let's go see what they can do. Now let's just go do one and done and see what they can do. Coaching is going to matter. When you get in a tournament, coaching matters.
That's
These
why
guys got
they're
1.5
at
2
least
years.
a Sweet 16 team, because they've got one of the best coaches in the country.
But you know what? Sweet 16 doesn't get you a ring. Or it probably does at LSU. They'll probably get a freaking ring at LSU.
So does Indiana probably, because it doesn't ever happen there.
No,
either.
well, then in my era.
In your era, which was like 50 years ago.
My partner on the Indiana Basketball Weekly show that we do, Colin Hartman. Our partner, Colin Hartman, his Big Ten championship ring that he got for Crean, not even winning the tournament, but winning the Big Ten on the regular season or tying for it. His ring is bigger than my national championship ring.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell?
Important.
Okay, fine. So people give rings out now like it's participation awards. You do something in a tournament, you get a ring.
Well,
there's probably colleges out there that give you a ring if you make the tournament.
Steve,
so
you're saying
jousting.
You're saying the only thing in the end that matters is when you win a national champion, or if you win a national championship.
Hell yeah, I do. In Indiana, it does.
It does.
That's why there's the problem with Indiana right now, with them not being relevant since 1987.
We're in right now. So, I mean,
anyway, this wasn't about Indiana. So
LSU, it's not. It's about LSU.
Win. Right. It's a great win. They're relevant.
This is the thing. Right now, I would say Duke is probably at least an Elite 8 team.
Okay.
What the hell does that mean? I'm just saying this, because I mean you got.
Duke's a Final Four team unless they beat themselves.
Okay, Steve. Most of what goes with winning a one and done tournament a lot of times is luck, even.
Yes, 51% of it.
It's more
I've said that every since I've played
because you know
in
what?
1981.
If Isaiah Thomas gets hurt,
it controls the game. Yeah.
Do you win? No.
Right. No, it's 51%. Well, I don't know. I don't know that somebody wouldn't have stepped up. Jimmy Thomas could have stepped up. I don't have the idea. I mean, I don't have because we didn't have to face that adversity. So that's hypothetical. I don't deal in hypothetics on one and done. I deal in reality. Okay. So, see, you want to deal in hypothetics. That's what we're talking about right now.
I deal in luck, and luck has a lot to do with it.
Luck is 51% of winning. I won one, and luck was 51%. Teams got beat when we won. DePaul got beat. Kentucky got beat. We got 3 mediocre teams that ended up playing in the Mideast Regional, which happened to be at Bloomington that year. Well, it was luck. Luck played 51% of us winning that championship. We didn't have to play against Virginia, who had Ralph Sampson and Lee and Raker and those guys, and we faced the North Carolina team, and then Reagan gets shot on the day of the championship. I mean, look at all the luck that happened for us winning.
So you think it was lucky that Reagan got shot?
No. Let me explain this to you. Let me explain it to you how it was. Because I know Dean Smith. I knew Dean Smith, because he recruited me, and I knew Bob Knight. The minute that this incident occurred, we were immediately taken into seclusion, and we focused on nothing but basketball. We were kept away from televisions. We had no idea what was going on. We were not told until 20 minutes before the game whether the game was even going to be played or not. That was Bob Knight's willing to prepare to win. And I'm sure the North Carolina team probably didn't take that same effort and make that same commitment that Knight made. I'm sure they stayed in their hotel. They went about their business. They watched it on TV all day. They got distracted, and there was Brian Gumbel on TV saying, this game may be canceled. The Oscars have been canceled tonight. They're not going to have the Oscars tonight. But we were removed from all of that. And so by the fact that incident occurred, changed the dynamics of coaching for Dean Smith and Bob Knight. Knight mastered it. I don't think Dean Smith did. And I think because you look at the talent on that North Carolina team in 1981 and what we had Isaiah.
Yeah.
They had Worthy, Perkins, Al Wood. They had 3 All-Americans. And we manhandled them.
You had
Isaiah. It was we had Isaiah.
You had Bobby Knight.
And we had Isaiah.
Belichick and Brady.
And Bobby
so
Knight.
It's
Right.
a bad comparison.
Right. And so I'm telling you, but it was luck. To me, it was luck, and not, everyone to wish what happened to Reagan that day. But the fact that incident occurred changed the coaching dynamics of that day and changed things around. And it played in our favor because Knight was better at preparing teams than anybody in the game at that point in time. And that's how we beat those guys. We were better prepared than they were.
I hate to tell you
that
this,
game.
but it doesn't matter if Reagan gets shot or not. It's always Bobby Knight beats
most likely you're probably right.
Come on,
but
he beat him with Steve.
You're right.
He beat him with freaking Michael Jordan a few years later. And a lot less talent than what you guys had in 1981.
He had Dan Dockage. Yeah, Dan Dockage, his claim to fame is he held Michael Jordan to 16 points, of which I think Jordan scored all 16 points in that game when Dockage was guarding.
Jordan only played like 20 minutes in that game. He got in foul trouble early, and he fouled out with like 5 minutes left.
He was
in the
sick.
Game, so
he had the flu.
He fouled out.
Yeah.
He got in foul. He had like 3 fouls in the first 6 minutes.
Anyway, let's get back. LSU is a player. I give you credit. I give you props, Mike. LSU is a player.
All right. Next up, Michigan gets beat by Penn State, 75-69. What's going on in the Big Ten? At least Michigan State got a huge win at Wisconsin, but Purdue loses to Maryland. I mean, is this pretty much still Michigan State's to lose, even with the injuries?
I think it's still Michigan State at the top. I've come on the past couple weeks now, and we've talked about Michigan and the inconsistencies and the struggles they're having offensively, and those showed up again in the Penn State game. I trust that Jean Beilein is going to get that turned around, knowing how good of a coach he is and how good of players that they have, especially in that starting lineup. But it's starting to become a real concern for me, the fact that Michigan's offense has sort of hit a wall, and they can't figure it out even when they go on the road and play a terrible team like Penn State. I thought that might be a get-right game for them, so to speak, and it wasn't in any sort of fashion. With the Purdue game, when we've talked a little bit about this with the Big Ten, about how even that middle is, and whoever's at the top just kind of depends on where they are in their schedule relative to the other teams. Going on the road and losing to a good Maryland team is not anything to be upset about if you're Purdue. Before the season started, if you're going through the schedule, you probably look at that and say, Maryland should win that game. So I don't think that's any reason to be alarmed if you're Purdue. I think it was more of a back to reality, a reality check for them in terms of where they are as opposed to anything else.
All right, Steve, what's your take on the Big Ten right now?
Okay, here we go. All right. Here's the first question I have. All right. And, Brian, let me ask you this. You have a son.
Okay.
He's great. He's a great basketball player. He's high school, all-prodigy, All-American. Who do you want him to play for, Izzo or Beilein? Just who do you want him to play for?
Of those two, probably Beilein.
Really? Seriously?
Seriously.
You think Beilein's track record in the college in the NCAA dance is better than Izzo's?
Not historically, but of the past half decade, yeah.
Okay. I disagree with you entirely. I think that Izzo will win the Big Ten, and I think that team will continue to come back. They went through a slump. They went through it. But I don't think that Beilein is nearly as good a coach as Izzo is in tournament play. It's not proven.
No. That getting in a national championship game last year proves that he's not really that good.
No. How many they won?
How many have they won makes you the better coach. So you think that John Wooden's better than Bob Knight? You think Adolph
Well, isn't that
Rupp
why
is
you
better
play the
than Bob
game,
Knight?
Mike, to win something? Isn't that why you play the game to win something, right?
Sure, Steve.
I think Michigan State is fine. Michigan State will dominate and will keep. They had their slump.
So you're saying Michigan State's going to win it all this year?
No, I think that
No?
we're talking Big Ten. We're not talking NCAA tournament. We said, what do I think about the Big
Michigan
Ten?
State goes farther than Michigan in the tournament?
I can't predict that. I think they probably have a logically. If I was going to bet money with Bobby Sheridan of the Sheridan Report, which is one of the best sports odds sites
Is
known if you're
Krzyzewski
not
a better
part
coach
of it.
than Knight?
What?
Is Krzyzewski a better coach than
Is
Knight?
Krzyzewski? Yeah. I mean, I would. Yeah, he's probably done more for a longer period of time. He's put more teams in the finals and gotten more teams into championship contention than Knight did. Knight did it 3 or 4 or 5 times, and I think Krzyzewski's done it much more than that. So yeah, consistency plays a role in this.
Okay.
I think that Izzo, you're not going to beat him starting right about now. You're going to see Michigan State dominate. Purdue getting dumped by Maryland 70-56 tells me once again that Painter, he can't coach crunch games. That team is a front-running team. That program is a front-running program that does well when nothing's on the line. And every time they get into a tournament situation and Painter has to actually coach a game and beat another coach or win a game by coaching, they fail. They don't succeed more times than they do succeed. I mean, I think Purdue is one of the most underachieving Big Ten teams in the last 10 years in the Big Ten.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question, Steve. So, basically, you can only be a great coach if you coach at a place like Duke or Kentucky, North Carolina, Indiana. Everybody else is irrelevant because they don't win championships.
No, Mike, you're a great coach if you win championships. And let's bring this back to
Wait a second.
Let's go to Dan Marino.
Wait a second.
What is your thoughts on Dan Marino? You talk down about Dan Marino.
Yeah, my thoughts on Dan Marino
he's never
are this.
won a Super Bowl.
No, it's not why I talk down about him.
Statistically, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to play the game.
Yeah.
But he's not won a championship. So he's never put in that category of Elway, of Montana, of Brady, of Manning, of any of the guys who are like the premier quarterbacks because he never won a championship. If you don't win championships, that's how you measure greatness and success.
Okay. That's how you measure greatness and success. All right, so let's say you had a coach. Let's say you had a coach.
Is Kevin Ollie a great coach?
He doesn't know who that is.
Is Kevin Ollie a great coach?
Who's Kevin Ollie?
He was the coach when UConn won the title in 2014. He's now fired.
Repeat the question. You're muffled.
Is Kevin Ollie a great coach? He won the title in 2014, but he now doesn't have a job because he stunk after that.
Well, I mean, sustainability is important.
Yeah.
What have you done for me lately?
Well, how about this? How about this for sustainability?
That's how Bob Knight can.
Hold on.
Because if Bob Knight had won a championship in the 2000s or the late 90s, he'd still be coaching at IU today.
I don't think
but he didn't. He 87. He fell off the bandwagon.
I don't think he could have
you know what? They finally got tired of his stick and his antics and said goodbye. So for Kevin Ollie, whoever you are, sayonara, baby. You're not winning for me today.
All right, John Beilein's coaching career. I mean, he didn't have everything handed to him.
I don't think John Beilein's a bad coach, Mike.
Wait a second. No, wait a second. You're going to be quiet for a second, and I'm going to speak. He went to Canisius to start his career, and he turned the school's losing program, which had won 4 games the previous 2 seasons, helped him earn 2 NIT bids, 1 NCAA appearance in 5 years. Next at Richmond, he reached the NCAA tournament twice, NIT twice in 5 years for a team that hadn't been in a tournament in almost a decade. He moved on to West Virginia, where his teams reached the second weekend of the NCAA tournament twice. It also twice went to the NIT, including 1 championship. At Michigan, he has become the school's winningest coach already. He has won 2 Big Ten regular season championships and 2 Big Ten tournament championships, and in the NCAA tournament has twice advanced as far as the national championship game. He has a
run that back.
See, there we go. There we go.
Run it back. Run it back.
Are you going to let me continue?
Are you going to let me continue? I was reading about the next game.
Now,
read it back and tell me what he's won in the Big Ten. Tell me what he's won in the Big Ten.
2 Big Ten championships, 2 Big Ten tournament titles. He also has
I won 2 Big Ten championships.
No, you didn't. You never coached a fucking team in the Big Ten. That's so stupid.
I played on one.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so
Bobby Knight won those championships.
All right, go on.
He has a 24 and 12
Does he have an NIT
career record
championship?
in the NCAA. Yes.
Does he have an NCAA championship?
He's played in 2 championship games.
Okay. What's the Celtics coach? What's his name?
I don't know, but I don't think Brad Stevens won an NIT title. And I don't think Brad Stevens
he didn't. He lost.
To the tournament.
You know what?
And I don't think Richmond went to the tournament with Brad Stevens. A one and done record. All right, let's give you an example.
I'm not knocking
Let's compare
John
coaches. Let's compare
Let's
coaches.
move on.
If you have a one and done record of 47 and 19, does that mean you can coach or does it not?
Repeat the question again.
Okay, NCAA, NIT, Big Ten, if you had a record of 47 and 19, is that a good record at one and done? Because that's how you prove you're a good coach, is what you said.
That's your one and done record?
Yeah.
47 and 19?
Yeah.
How many championships do you have?
He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, counting conference championships.
National championships?
None.
Okay, then there's your answer.
Okay, so Kevin Ollie is a better coach than John Beilein.
If you wanted a national championship, you would probably,
That is fucking stupid. I mean, you're going to tell me Kevin Ollie, a guy who can't even have a job, won a national championship, so he's a better coach than John Beilein, who has taken Canisius, Richmond, and West Virginia from the trash heap to the NCAA tournament. In Michigan has basically been irrelevant for a long time before he got there, since 1989? Now they've been in they've won 4 Big Ten titles, and they've been to the NCAA championship game twice, but Kevin Ollie is the better coach.
No, I will not say that.
Now you will also tell me this.
I will not say that.
Well,
I will not say that. I will redact that statement. I will redact that statement on that case. But
Trent Dilfer
for the success that John Beilein has had at everything doing except where he needs to be successful at a program like Michigan, he has failed.
Really?
Because he has done everything in the world, but can't
wait a
get
second.
his team to win one of those games.
I hate this. He's a college basketball coach. He graduates the majority of his players. There's never been any cheating scandals at all. He averages well over 20 wins a season, and he's a failure. But, Tom Izzo, I guess we forget about anything that happened under Tom Izzo at Michigan State in the last couple of years, and that doesn't count. He's a success. John Wooden has people buy his players. He's a success. I don't think the most wins makes you the greatest coach.
All right, Brian, is Tennessee for real or not? I'm off this conversation. I'm done with that.
Of course, because you were getting your.
If I'm betting my money, I'm betting on Izzo over Beilein 10 out of 10 times.
Well,
no
you'll
question.
lose probably 7 out of 10.
That's fine. If I do, then I do, but that's fine. Tennessee, are they real?
They're for real, but they're not for real as the number 1 team in the country. I think they're a really good team. I think they're a definite top 10 team, probably top 5 team. But they've benefited from a fairly lackluster schedule from the time they beat Gonzaga up until now. As we talked about before with LSU, Tennessee's schedule ramps up here to close the season in the last 7 games. So we'll find out how good they are coming up. I think they'll go maybe 5-2 during the stretch, which will be really, really good. Considering the teams are going to have to play, but I think that'll knock them down a bit in terms of where we see them nationally.
Well, they're not ranked number 1 in any poll that matters, Brian.
There you go.
Because the Grueling Truth poll, they're not ranked number one.
They're ranked number one.
We do have two idiots though that keep putting them at number one, but I just ignore them.
I don't. I have
They must not watch Duke.
I never said
number one at
you.
all.
I said two idiots.
Okay, all right. Well, I hear the word idiot, and I immediately think you're thinking of me. So.
No, that's imbecile. But
okay, okay. I'll take that too. Thank you.
all right. How about this? What about Villanova and why, Steve? Does Jay Wright not get any play as possibly the coach of the year? Because I haven't seen his name. I usually see Chris Mack, a couple other guys, but I don't see him. But I don't think there's anybody, considering what he's lost over the last year or two, that's done a better job.
Oh, I don't think the voting's been done on that. I think that when
I'm
you
just
watch,
saying nobody's really bringing it up.
Right, you're right. You're right, because I think they've been mediocre in terms of what our expectations are of Villanova. And Brian, jump in here, please, because you know the Big East better than I do. But I think that what you're seeing is one of the teams that are accelerating the fastest right now is Villanova, and they're changing their posture, they're changing their position, they're becoming very dangerous. And I think, Mike, that before it's all said and done, he will be considered in there. But certainly, I think when you win 2 or 3 championships as they've won in the last years, and Jay Wright's been the coach that he's done, and Villanova's dominated, our expectations go so high that when they have kind of a year like they've had, which is kind of subpar for what we expect of Villanova, so all of a sudden he's not in consideration. But when you talk about teams, and Brian, am I right here that this is a team that's accelerating as fast as anybody in the country right now?
Yeah, the problem with his Coach of the Year case is that they're now finally playing like the team that a lot of people expected them to be in the preseason. He gets some benefit now looking back because of how poorly they played the first 2 months of the season, and that factors into his Coach of the Year conversation as well, as the fact that with a completely healthy roster, they lost to Penn. They lost to Furman. The improvement they've shown this year has been incredible, and right now they're clicking on all cylinders and are that team we thought they were going to be. But if you're going on Coach of the Year, he hasn't necessarily done more with less in comparison to maybe Rick Barnes, the level he has Tennessee playing at, or Chris Mack at Louisville. He gets consideration for Big East Coach of the Year, but I think nationally there are other guys who probably are.
Don't you think that's kind of a product of winning a couple national championships over the last few years?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I just said. Yeah. So here's my question, Brian. You look at a guy like Archie Miller, who basically his team was stronger in November. I mean, that was a top 10 basketball team in November, wasn't it? At one time, didn't Indiana crack the top 10? No, top 20. All right, so whatever.
Yeah,
they were ranked top 20. They have fallen off the face of the earth. You got Jay Wright, whose team I don't think they were ranked at the beginning of the year, and now they're ranked in the top 15, somewhere in there, based on what poll we look at.
Yeah, top 15.
Yeah, and then you look at a guy like Chris Mack, who is a spitting image of Archie Miller in Indiana, and what he's done with Louisville under the adversity that program is going through. It's phenomenal what he's done at Louisville, under what that whole program has had to go through and endure, and what they're still facing. So you take a guy like Jay Wright, who is now building his team, Archie Miller, whose team is declining, Chris Mack, whose team has gotten stronger than hell. I think that bodes well. That Jay Wright, to me, it says that you look at 3 guys here who are, prominent coaches in college basketball. All 3 of them are. But you look at Jay Wright and you say, here's a guy, he's got the bullseye on his back from all the national championships he's won. It's bigger than life. And he struggled, but yet he's built his team, and he's got him he's tuned it up. He's fine-tuned the engine. They're rolling, and now you get the point to where the reputation gives you 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points a game, because now it's like it's Villanova, it's Jay Wright. I don't know if we can outcoach him. I don't know if we can outplay him. He's got championships under his belt. I think he's a prime candidate for Coach of the Year. I think it's one of his best coaching jobs right now, what he's doing, because he does not have the talent that he's had in the previous years. And Chris Mack, too. You got to look at Chris Mack and go, man, what a get. How lucky was Louisville?
All right.
What a good get for them.
I think this. I don't think Jay Wright should be the coach of the year. I just think he should be mentioned. I think
he won't be.
Job.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. How about the Houston Cougars? Talk to us about Houston.
Mm-hmm.
They're 24-1. It's a team I know you said at the start of the year you thought was good, but not as good as last year. Have they changed your mind yet?
Well, the difference between them this year is last year they had a guy, Rob Gray, who was one of the country's best offensive players and their real star. The kind of scorer you could depend on in a tournament game. And remember, they were that miracle shot away from beating Michigan in advance into the Sweet 16, and that team last year may have gone to the Final Four, with how crazy that region turned out to be. This year, they're much more team-oriented. They still have a great defense, one of the I think top 20 or top 10 defenses in the country. They have two guys, in Corey Davis and Armani Brooks, who have sort of picked up that offensive load, and they get spot contributions from the rest of the guys here and there, but they rely on those two players mostly offensively to have a really good defense. They haven't, playing in the American, you get tested some, but not as much as some of the other conferences, so the schedule or the record might be a bit inflated, but they do have some good non-conference wins, including a win over LSU that they picked up in the non-conference. And speaking of Coach of the Year, I think you need to look at Kelvin Sampson at Houston, what he's done, because they're a legitimate top 12, top 10 team right now.
All right, let's go ahead and look at the games coming up this weekend. We're going to start off with Tennessee against Kentucky. I think this is a big game for both, but especially Kentucky coming off of a loss. But I think it's huge for Tennessee just because they've got to prove that they are really for real.
Yeah, and I think Kentucky will win because it's at Rupp Arena. I don't see them losing two big games at home in a row. I do think we'll see a little bit of a adjustment from Tennessee, or the fact that they need to make an adjustment taking this big step up in competition. Kentucky's been playing these level of games pretty much night in, night out for the past month, and Tennessee may not be used to that kind of battle they're going to have to go into. It'll be close, I think, for a majority of the game because, I think they're both pretty evenly matched. But I would give the edge to Kentucky because I think they're more battle tested and they're at home.
All right, Steve, what's your take on Kentucky, Tennessee?
I'm looking forward to watching this game. Actually, to me it gives a chance for Tennessee to validate themselves. It's a tough place to go play, and I think this is one of the biggest games we're going to see in the next 2 or 3 weeks here before we start getting into conference championships and things like that. Because we've all sat there and we've all been kind of skeptical of Tennessee, and I have. I mean, maybe I'm just speaking for myself that I've been skeptical of Tennessee. But if they come in here and play well and win, then it validates them, and then all of a sudden you're talking about Tennessee being a legitimate number one pick or number one seed in a Final Four team. That's my opinion.
All right, next up, Steve, I'll start with you because this is a huge game in the Big Ten. John Beilein, who you think sucks as a coach, hosts Maryland.
I don't think John Beilein sucks as a coach. That's not what I said. That is so wrong for you to put that on air. I just say if I'm going to
everybody listening knows
Izzo
it's a
and
joke.
Beilein, I'm going to take Izzo. That's all I said. I think they're two of the best. They are the two best coaches in the Big Ten, bar none. They are the two. They're 1 and 2. I just think Izzo, because he's done it longer, got his teams to the championships more.
But he hasn't done anything lately. What have you done lately?
No, you're right. He hasn't. You're right. But I just think that if I'm going to put my son in a basketball program, I'm probably going to put him at Michigan State over Michigan.
I'll tell you what.
And Brian went the other way. So
I would
Brian's
put my son in
smarter than
Michigan because I don't have to worry about what goes on in that program. I'll just leave it like that.
And there's a good point there too. But I was trying to go just on pure basketball,
and I'm not talking about
all
even
the other antics that go on at the university.
But the antics that
Michigan,
go on.
Maryland. This game's at Michigan. I think Michigan runs away with this game. I think again, Beilein's a great coach. I think Maryland was a front-running team, had a hot streak, and I think they've fallen off a little bit. But I think, Beeline's got a solid basketball club. He's a great basketball coach, and I don't think Michigan's got anything to worry about in this game because they're playing it at Chrysler Arena, in Ann Arbor, and so I don't think this is not the most important game of the weekend.
Well, I think
it may not even be the most important game of the Big Ten this weekend.
I think on Saturday it is. The thing that strikes me here is...
more important is Purdue and Penn State, really, truly.
Yeah, I know. Purdue against Penn State. Penn State, who's what, 10-15? Yeah, that's important. Instead of two teams ranked in the top 25, they're playing for a Big Ten title.
No, because I think Michigan's going to run away with this game, Mike. I think it's not an important game because I think that Michigan's going to run away with this game. And Purdue is now getting into their season where they start falling off the face of the earth historically, and they're coming off a loss, they're coming off a tough situation, and let's see how they respond. Because Purdue is a team that we've seen them in the top 4. We saw the first 16 rankings, and Purdue was listed as a number 4 seed in one of the damn brackets, and they're going to lose that, and that hurts them in terms of seeding and play and who they draw as an opponent. And there you go right back into Purdue, once again, getting in a tournament situation and pissing on themselves.
All right, Penn State at Purdue. Purdue wins by double digits. Maryland, Michigan. I think Maryland could give trouble to Michigan, Bobby, just because Michigan hasn't shot the ball that well. And if you're not shooting the ball that well, you're not going to blow too many people out.
Well, I will say this. Mark Turgeon has not beat a ranked team on the road since he took the Maryland head coaching job.
Well, I don't think he's going to win the game. I just think that they'll stay in the vicinity.
Yeah.
So are you saying I was kind of right, Mike?
They're going to start.
No, because I think this.
No.
What do you want to bet? What do you want to sing that one game's bigger difference than the other one? I think Michigan beats Maryland something like 72-62. I think Purdue beats Penn State 81-60.
I hope so. I hope so.
I don't.
But Purdue gets unpredictable. Purdue gets unpredictable this time of year. They just get unpredictable. They're not predictable.
They're not unpredictable in the tournament where they're going to lose in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, if we talk about the Big Ten, Brian. Bobby's not on yet. I'm sorry.
No, he's not. Thanks
Michigan State, Ohio State. Is Ohio State making a little run here? And they're going up to East Lansing to play Michigan State. Is that an important game?
That's an important game because I think if Ohio State wins that, I think that takes them off the bubble and puts them firmly in. Another bad loss could put them back on the bubble, but I think for Ohio State, that'd be the kind of win that would take them from having any kind of question about their NCAA tournament status into being firmly in.
So they've got incentive to go out there and play hard. We saw Indiana go up there and win at East Lansing. Ohio State came in and beat Indiana at Assembly Hall. So, that's an important game. I think Michigan State needs to reestablish itself as if they want to get a top 4 seed or, potentially get into a 1 seed situation, which I think they're far away from it now with the 3 losses. But they've got to go play well, and they have to dominate this game, I think, and not just win the game. Right or wrong?
I think they can just win the game. It will matter how they look. If it's a well-played game, they win by 5. I don't think anyone's going to make a real fuss about that. But if they play poorly and win by 5 in just a bad game, or game they don't play well, I think that might be a different story. But, yeah, I think this is a good sort of test for them. We think they've righted the ship after that losing streak. The win over Minnesota last weekend kind of put them on that course. I think this will kind of confirm that or raise questions again about the team.
All right.
Okay.
I think Michigan State wins the game. I don't think Ohio State offensively is good enough to beat Michigan State. Neither was IU.
Agreed.
They got hot one night.
I agree.
Right. I agreed. Agreed entirely.
And another game that sticks out to me on Sunday is Villanova and St. John's. St. John's 18-7.
Yeah.
They're on the bubble. Pretty much everybody in the Big East outside of Villanova and Marquette is on the bubble. But with St. John's, they're a team that I think, Brian, matches up good with certain teams. They matched up good with Marquette.
Mm-hmm.
I think they match up good with Villanova, and I think they showed that. Villanova had trouble with them earlier in the year at Villanova and only beat them by 5 points. This is a huge game for St. John's because St. John's' schedule was not that tough, and to have 2 Marquette wins and a Villanova win, you would think would have to take them off the bubble, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think that would put them in. Both are guard-oriented teams, and where St. John's has the advantage is they're more athletic in pretty much every position, and they have the best player on the court in Shamori Pons. So if Pons plays well and they're able to kind of get the game up and down and use that athleticism advantage, I think that's where you see them potentially pulling off this upset at home.
Steve, do you have any opinion?
No, I agree. I agree entirely. Yeah, I think it's a dangerous game. But the Big East is brutal. It's kind of like it's a mirror of the Big Ten. You can go win, games that you think are sure bets are not sure bets in the Big East and the Big Ten. I think the ACC is a little more different. They're a little more separated. But I think the Big East and the Big Ten it's such parity in both those conferences that you just don't know what's going to happen on any given day. So, it's another fun game to watch. Unfortunately for me, on Sunday, it's Daytona, baby. So to hell with all basketball. I'm not watching basketball on Sunday.
Yeah, it's much better to watch people turn left. All right.
Okay. I have one more game. I have one more game on Sunday that I think is important. Saturday, actually, the game is Saturday.
Okay.
I think this is an important game. Notre Dame at Virginia.
Why is that important?
Is this an important game, Brian? Notre Dame you got a great coach. He's done well there.
No,
Virginia is
he's not a great coach. He's never even been to a Final Four, much less won a national championship.
No, but he's done well at Notre Dame.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, great. Okay, he's a good coach. Let me redact again. I
think he's
watched the Law Show last night, and I heard the word redact.
Okay, Notre Dame's 13-11. I don't think they're going anywhere anyway. Win or
well, but this is the kind of thing where Bray is a danger enough of a coach that if Virginia's not on their A game and Virginia's shooting for a number 1 seed, they're playing at Virginia. I get that, but is this a relevant game or not, or is this a walk away for Virginia?
It'll be a walk away for Virginia. The only thing,
very fair.
The only reason it might not be is if Virginia is suddenly distracted by the renewed Tony Bennett to UCLA rumors, but I don't think that's the case, and I don't think Tony Bennett's going anywhere. That'd be the only thing that would cause it to be any sort of a game.
Well, I want to talk about that too before we hang up, so I'm going to bring that up in a minute. I have a couple coaching questions for you, so go ahead and finish. But Mike, don't hang up on me. I got 2 coaching questions.
Why would I hang up on you? I have a question for him yet too, and I'm just going to go ahead and ask mine to beat you. The Morant kid from Murray State. How good is this guy? And what are Murray State's chances to get in the tournament so we could watch him try to maybe upset somebody?
He's every bit as good as you think he is, if not better. A lot of people obviously just see the highlights, and they're incredible, but his best skill might be his passing ability and his vision. We don't see that a lot. He's great around the rim as well, even when he's not ducking over people. He's very crafty with his finishes. He can kind of get those off around defenders however he can. His three-point shot's a little bit of a work in progress, but it's not something that's broken and that he's terrible at. He's just inconsistent with it, and that's something that will improve over time. Murray State needs to win the Ohio Valley Conference, I think, with the conference tournament to get in. There are 3 really good teams in there with Murray State and Belmont and Austin Peay, who Murray State beat last night. Some people think that the Ohio Valley might get 2 bids into the tournament. I don't. I think whoever doesn't win the conference tournament, assuming it's Murray State or Belmont, will be in that bubble conversation, but I wouldn't see either of those having the resume to get in. So,
does Murray State have a better chance just because people want to see the Morant kid play in the NCAA tournament?
Yes. They would have a much better chance in an at-large conversation than Belmont would. Whether the committee would say that or not is a different story, but yeah, you have to believe they have a better chance because of him.
Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I have no opinion.
Watch the kid.
I don't have an opinion on that. I don't have an opinion on that.
I think he's the most exciting player in college basketball. And that's
I
over
think
Zion
Zion.
Williamson,
I
too.
think Zion is, but Morant has the ball in his hands.
Well, Datney's not like a giant and bigger than everybody else.
Well, that's part of the fun. That's part of the excitement.
I know. That's what I'm saying. And he's the kind of kid that who wants to play him in the
I'm
first
talking
round of
about
the NCAA
Zion.
tournament?
Zion.
Yeah.
Well, Murray State's good enough to win a game, or maybe even two, depending on who they play. They're more than just him, but he takes them to a different level.
Yeah. All right, Steve, your coaching questions.
Coaching questions. Let's go to the obvious number one. Tony Bennett to UCLA. What's your thoughts on that, Brian? I mean, I'll shut up and let you listen. Yeah. I'll give you my thoughts.
Of any, UCLA is going to go after obviously him. They've started going after him, and a lot of other top coaches like that. Of those kind of top tier coaches, I think he may have the best chance of leaving, just because of some of his ties to the West Coast and the Pac-12, having coached at Washington State. But that said, he's not leaving. I don't think he's leaving. I would be completely and utterly shocked if he left the cushy position he has at Virginia for UCLA. They're going to go after those top-level guys first, who currently have jobs and have had a lot of success. Kelvin Sampson at Houston's another guy that they're looking at. Eric Musselman at Nevada, obviously. A couple others that are kind of at the top. I don't know if any of them will leave outside of maybe Musselman. But I would still look at him, and we've talked about Fred Hoiberg and Earl Watson in the past. Hoiberg still seems to be kind of the guy that they'll eventually settle on once they kind of strike out on all of these top guys. So you're going to hear a lot more links between UCLA and guys who you're wondering why they're going after.
Okay, so here's my follow-up question. I knew that was what your answer was going to be. I predicted that your answer, I was correct in predicting your answer. Should UCLA do this and just go find some young kid that can create his own legacy and dynasty at UCLA and not come with a legacy and dynasty like an Alford did, and just say, you know what, because I think that one of the problems for Indiana has been everything's always been compared to Bob Knight. And I think that everything's always compared to John Wooden. And we know that John Wooden was a scoundrel. We assume that. But should UCLA just forego finding another big-name Hollywood star to come into L.A., or should they just go get some young kid out like Butler found Brad Stevens? They found him. And he, Butler turned Brad Stevens into a superstar. And he was a nobody before that. And should UCLA go that route and not go after a Tony Bennett or a Rick Pitino or whoever they're thinking about, who's already a branded thing? Because it's like then the expectations, you expect to win immediately because you brought Tony Bennett into UCLA. Should they just go get somebody young and say, we're gonna rebuild this program, start from scratch?
I think it depends. It may sound simple, but UCLA is the kind of program that is going to make whoever their head coach is a superstar as long as they win. If they feel their best chance at if their best chance at making a Final Four, national championship, winning national championship, multiple national championships, if they feel like that's going to be a Tony Bennett, that's what they should go after. But they don't need to hire a name just to hire a name. Like I don't feel like they should shy away from hiring like a Nate Oates at Buffalo or some up-and-coming mid-major coach because it's not a sexy name and they won't win the press conference, so to speak. Whoever they hire is only going to be successful, whether they're a big name with a track record or a young up-and-comer without a track record. They're not going to have any sort of long-standing success unless they find somebody who they trust and give a few years to sort of establish their own program and then win. Because they don't necessarily have to bring in a superstar already. UCLA is a big enough brand so that whenever they're good again, whoever that coach is will become a superstar.
Right, which is why I don't think you need a superstar.
What about Luke Walton?
That's a good choice. I was thinking Luke Walton.
The only potential flaw there, because the Lakers are gonna fire him at some point, I'm sure, is if the Arizona job comes open. If Luke Walton decides to go back to Arizona or stay in LA and take the UCLA job.
Yeah. because Arizona would
I think
probably
Luke
be
Walton at
his first.
UCLA would be a all-around great move. And I was thinking that, and that was one of the good question, Mike. I was thinking the same thing. You know what? Just Luke ought to walk away from there and say, I'm going back to UCLA, and I'm just going to,
How would he go
get back
to
to the roots of the game.
UCLA? He's never been.
No,
to
go
UCLA.
to UCLA. Well, his dad was there, so I apologize.
Why not get Bill?
To UCLA.
Let's get Bill. He may have
Bill
like
is too funny on the
cupcakes
radio.
on the air.
We can't lose Bill on TV. You can't lose Bill on TV.
I can't stand him on TV.
You can't. Okay, the next question I have for you is, I spoke yesterday with a Kansas player, a player who played at Kansas, prominent player at Kansas. We were discussing some other things, and he thinks Bill Self is in trouble.
Yeah.
And this is a player. This is a former player talking about it, and I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to get him, and put his name out there and say that. But we had a conversation about that, and I asked him specifically about how safe was Bill Self, and he didn't think he was real safe.
It has everything to do with the NCAA violations and everything with the FBI investigation.
Yeah, that was all part of the discussion, right?
Yeah, as opposed to him on the court. I know Kansas isn't Kansas that we expect on the court this year, but anything that comes up with Bill Self's job status has more to do with the off-the-court stuff than anything actually on the court. So I think we'll hear a little bit about that in the offseason. Obviously, if anything more comes out regarding that once the season ends, that'll be sort of, I think then we'll start to hear real rumblings of that. But right now, I still think it's just something minor to keep an eye on. I don't think there's any real fire there yet, but there's certainly just a little bit of smoke.
All right. Steve,
Okay.
Anything else?
Mike?
No,
I've extended my time as usual.
All right.
I
Brian,
apologize, but
you
I
coming?
love the discussion. I mean, I think, Brian, it's fun to talk to you. Mike, you get great insight, and I think we have fun discussions, so I enjoy it immensely, and I learn every time I sit and talk to you two guys.
All right, Brian.
So thank you for that.
Coming
from my
back
point of view.
Monday?
I'll be back Monday.
All right, guys. You want to tell everybody where they can find you real quick, Brian, before we let you go?
Yes, so everything's on bustingbrackets.com. Great website for anything college hoops. I got a great staff group of writers up there, so really anything you want to know about college basketball, anything you're interested in, there's going to be plenty for you. Bustingbrackets.com. You can follow me on Twitter at brauf33. It's DRAUF 33.
All right, guys. We are going to go ahead and wrap this part of the show up. We are going to take a commercial break, and we'll be back in a minute with Bobby Sheridan. Thanks,
Thank you, Brian. Talk to you Monday, buddy.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Tune in to Game Day IQ for the smartest hour in sports. Test your knowledge of sports trivia on everything from football, basketball, and baseball to cricket, tennis, and hockey to horse racing, auto racing, and soccer, and, of course, the Olympics. Every week, you'll learn tantalizing details of sports' most intriguing conundrums that you can stump your friends with.
Find out what sports figure needs a remedial trip to Coach Buck's bench. Settle in for story time with Uncle Bucky. See if this is the week that I go off on a Category 5 level rant. Learn whose performance on or off the playing surface deserves a special place on this week's pedestal. All that plus a variety of other features that all add up to the most cerebral hour in sports this week. Oh, and you'll have fun too. So raise your Game Day IQ by joining me, host Chris Cook, and
Alan Buck for an informative look at this week in sports right here at thegruelingtruth.net.
All right, guys. We're back on Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your co-host, Mike Goodpaster, sitting here with, of course, 1981 national champion Steve Risley. And Steve, since you were calling Brian Bobby, we might as well go ahead and get Bobby on the line.
I did it one time. All right.
I know you miss Bobby, so we're going to go ahead and get Bobby on the line.
Bobby all night long.
What?
Where's Bobby?
Bobby's coming. Bobby's got to answer.
Get his ass out.
There we go.
Get his
Bobby
ass
Sheridan
out.
from the
Get his ass
Sheridan
out of
Report.
bed.
How you doing, Bobby? Bobby, you've had
How
such
you
an
guys
effect
doing?
on Risley that he called Brian Rauf today Bobby.
Oh, I did it one time. I mean, Jesus Christ, okay? Like you've never made a mistake, Goodpaster.
I made
never
that one.
screwed up
I
on the
made
air.
one. I made one.
Yeah.
Doing the show with
working
you.
With me. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was going to beat you to that punch too. So the hell with you on that one too.
All right, Bobby.
Did you guys have a good hour with Brian?
Oh, it was great as always,
We
Brian.
had a
knows
great
his
hour
stuff.
with Brian.
Did we figure out who's going to the Final Four yet?
No, we didn't even talk that.
Steve hasn't, but everybody else has. No, I'm kidding.
All right.
All right. What are your big picks for tonight or this weekend?
Well, there's no basketball today. There's only a handful of games in the college, and it's conferences we don't look at. And, the NBA is on the break, so very light schedule there. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, I've got 2 ATP selections that are still available for today. They're coming up in the next half hour or hour, though. So I'm glad you went straight to that. Anybody that bets the ATP, we have 2 early riser matchups. Shapovalov at roughly 10:30 California time, so in about a half hour. Shapovalov over Wawrinka. That is going to be an outstanding match. I'm going to watch that match myself when we get off air. And then the other one, and that's Shapovalov at plus $1.10, $1.20. And then the other one would be, where is it? It's in the Argentina Open matchup, more about the 11 o'clock hour, and that's Pella over Munar. Munar's been very impressive this tournament. He's a young guy that is having some of his biggest moments. This is going to be a tough matchup for him, though. So we like the value there with Pella at plus $1.10. So those 2 early risers still going. And then the PGA, we were really happy to see that with the ending of the first round, we held on with both of our matchups from yesterday. We hit both of those, so they both held on. And I'm going to watch some of that when we get off, too. And Steve, have you gotten a chance to see any of that yet?
I've got it on right now. They got the Champions Tour on right now. They had some early play on earlier this morning. Course looked sloppy. Tiger looked like he was struggling but we didn't see him play a lot. But I don't. Yeah, I've been on the air, so I haven't looked and seen. I've got Golf Channel on, but I'm not watching.
Well, you got to go. Your fans have got to get the NBC Gold. That's on. They got that featured 3 right now is on. They got Woods, Rory McIlroy, and Justin Thomas.
That's only available on streaming on computer, right?
Right. Just streaming, yeah. And it's very cheap.
Hell with that. I can't watch it on my 75-inch big screen. I'm not watching it. Hell with that.
But
I'm 50 years old. My eyes aren't that good.
Well, you could probably still shoot 85% from the line, though. I wouldn't bet against that.
He couldn't do that when he was
do that
20.
line.
He could do that 65% from the line. Yeah.
There you go.
But it's still better
Steve,
than most
what did you shoot from the line in high school and college? What do you know exactly?
How the hell do I know? I was, I played at IU, so I probably shot bad. Yeah, I probably shot poorly. I played at IU. There's not been an IU player other than Steve Alford with, dribble, sock, short, swish, or shock, short, swish, dribble that could do anything. So the hell with that.
Yeah.
All I know is I scored the last point of the 1981 college basketball season when I hit a free throw that put us up, I think, 61-50 over North Carolina, and that was the last.
50, Steve.
And I scored the 63rd point. So whatever it was, I don't know the score, but I scored that. I hit a free throw, and there's a classic picture of me on the game broadcast. If you watch it, me telling everybody just to calm down. Let's just get this free throw in, and let's go play some defense.
Yeah, Steve wanted to get another point so he could get to 5. And that's not a rep. I mean, you want your points, damn it. Risley shot 64.7% from the line. With a low in his freshman year of 48%. We'd have been bitching about you all the time we were doing an Indiana show in 78, Steve.
I would fit right into the Indiana basketball program.
75%, then 64.7, and 65.1 for 64.7.
There you go.
That's okay.
There have been better. So I am, mediocre is, I'm cream of the crap. Just tell me I'm cream of the crap. I'm a color guy. I'm just a color guy.
All right. You're not a colored guy. You're not a colored guy. You're white, Steve. All right.
A color guy.
Brian. Bobby.
You just did not do that. Tell me you just did not.
I did it on purpose to make you feel
Mike,
better.
Goodpaster, tell me you just did not do that.
Oh, he's screwed now for a month.
Oh,
no,
my goodness.
I did it on purpose to make Steve feel better.
Royally.
All right, Bobby, do you have any takes on the AAF games this weekend? I'm sure you do on Orlando and San
I'm never going to let you
Antonio.
live this down. You're never going to live this down. Talk about anything you want to, but I'm going to just keep ripping on this. Go ahead, Bobby. You're toast for the rest of the show.
Bobby, do you want to talk about Orlando, San Antonio at all?
I do, Mike. I'm glad you asked that. On Sunday at 1 o'clock California time, 4 o'clock Eastern, will be the first game of the Sunday doubleheader in the AAF, and the Apollos are going to go down to San Antonio, and this is the only matchup between teams that each won their first game. So they're each 1-0, and they each were really impressive. Power rankings wise, these are two of the top three teams after the first weekend, and that includes Arizona being the third. So this will probably be the premier game. If you're going to watch one game this weekend, would be this game. And one thing I think will happen, I do think the Apollos defense will travel. They're really solid on all three levels. The line, the linebackers, and the corners did a really good job, even though they were missing a couple guys that were banged up. They're getting one or at least one guy back to help them in the defensive backfield. They played really well the first week as it was. They have a shutdown corner, and they have an NFL linebacker named Garvin who played with the Steelers, and he looks like he's going to get another shot because he's able to cover really well the running backs out of the backfield, and that'll be really necessary for the NFL. And he had 2 picks and was a defensive player of the week as a linebacker last week. And I really like their defense, and that'll travel. And we know Spurrier will have them ready on offense, but San Antonio's really solid too. The Commanders, they had a great first week, and they have 2 defensive ends that are going to create some havoc, and they have a shutdown corner as well that will be an NFL guy in the summer. So I think it's going to be a defensive oriented game. The total is 44.5. So let's go under the Apollos and Commanders on that 1 o'clock Sunday game. That would be my AAF pick for the weekend.
All right. My concern here defensively for Orlando is the fact that they played Atlanta, and Atlanta has an atrocious coach and an atrocious team. So I think right here, I think this game, it's a toss-up. I think Sean Washington for San Antonio, I think he's one of the best linebackers in the league. Their pass rush was great last week. My question with San Antonio is, Logan Woodside in the quarterback position. I think both teams have 2 or 3 wide receivers that are studs. I think they have defensively. I think they're both good. I think coaching-wise, they're both good. They may be the 2 best coach teams in this league.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
Terry Riley's excellent for San Antonio.
Yeah. When I look at it, with the Apollos, I think Charles Johnson could be the difference here. He's a guy that is a rookie in the NFL in 2014, had 31 receptions for 475 yards. He's a good football player. I think these are 2 good teams. I think the game's a toss-up. And I think most importantly, when you look at Orlando and San Antonio, I think they have the 2 best ownership groups in the NFL, which is why I think you're looking at maybe the 2 best teams in the AAFL or the AAF, because they both put together great rosters that have a fair amount of NFL experience, and they've got a good mixture of young guys that haven't really got an opportunity yet. So actually, I'm looking forward to watching this game. Steve will be able to watch it because I think the Daytona 500 will be over by then. So, all right, let's move on.
Well, that's good stuff, Mike. I'm glad to see you doing your homework with the AAF.
I always do my
Mike,
homework.
Can I ask you a question about the AAF?
Sure.
The question I have for you is this: is that there seems to be a fair amount of chatter about the AAF, right?
Yeah.
It
did a higher rating. Hold on real quick. The Saturday night games did a higher rating than the NBA.
Right.
Yes.
So my question is this: is it, Mike? I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Is it about talent and quality, or is it about marketing? Is this just getting marketed right because CBS is covering it and showing it, or because I know you kind of question some of the talent?
Well, I don't question
in this league.
the
So
Orlandos.
what's making it relevant? Is it talent or marketing?
What's making it relevant right now is this: the Super Bowl ended the week before it. People still want to watch football. We will find out if this league will be a success if 5 weeks from now they're still getting good TV ratings and they're relevant. I don't know if that'll happen or not. And marketing is the biggest thing to all of this. I mean, I've coached on some arena indoor teams that were great teams that drew like 2,000 people a game because the owner that was marketing it didn't market it right. And marketing is huge here, especially when you get into baseball season. You got college basketball, the NCAA tournament. I mean, they're still playing the games on the weekend during the NCAA tournament. That's going to hurt. I think if I was them, if I was running a league like this, maybe you go to Monday night games to 2 or 3 weeks during the tournament. You may have to have a bye week right before the NCAA tournament starts so everybody rests enough. But I don't see why, Bobby, you'd want to go up against the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that's a good call, and I think we'll see after this first year what happens on that weekend or those 2 weekends, and then they may make an adjustment for next year. But when talking about marketing, I can tell you, social media is doing an unbelievable job. They're all over Twitter. Every one of these organizations, they're doing a great job, and they're on the cutting edge technology-wise too. Some of the players are wearing devices.
Yeah, that's what I mean
body.
by marketing. They're giving you something you can't see during an NFL game or you don't see during an NFL game. My only question is when you get 4 or 5 weeks in, does that wear off? Because I know indoor football-wise, usually your first game of the year, if you seat 10,000, you might have 6,000 or 7,000 in there. By the last game, even if it's a championship game, that crowd's cut in half because as weather gets nicer, people want to go out and do stuff. And it's not a rip on the league because I think they've done an outstanding job, especially teams like Orlando and San Antonio. And I thought those crowds were decent. I saw a lot of people rip on them. But for a startup league that nobody really knew a whole lot about, I think they've done a good job. I think the problem you're going to have here is just the quality of quarterbacks. I mean, you'll have 2 or 3 teams that are set there. But, I mean, come on, Christian Hackenberg. You can find somebody.
Well, he's getting a lot of negative press, but hey, look, it's off to a good start, and the one thing in the gambling, the sports betting part of this, they've embraced it as well as everybody has, and if you go on their app, what they're setting up is they're setting up the ability to be able to bet the next play even, and to be able to bet how this drive will end. It's not there yet, but the technology is in place to where we're going to be able to bet, okay, this drive is going to end in a field goal and in a touchdown. They will convert this third down. You're going to be able to make bets on that live as we're going, and that's, wow, I mean, they're going in a direction that we've never seen. So it's interesting, and the rule changes that they've gone to have been a hit, and I think they're allowing more contact. Some of the hitting, I think it's refreshing for some of the fans to be able to watch football again. So they're doing things right, and maybe we can ask if we get Michael Waddell on next week or next few weeks, whenever you guys can get him on. Maybe we can ask him some of these questions. He's the president of the Apollos, and he's a hell of a guy. So if we get him on, that'll be a good interview.
Yeah, and I look forward to having him on because they're one of the teams that are definitely doing it right. The other thing I always noticed was this. You could be doing everything right, but you got a couple teams that drag everything else down. So I think they got as good a shot as anybody has of making it that has attempted this since the original AFL. Bobby, on this day, we've got...
Wait. Can I ask a question before you move on? Mike, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And Bobby/Brian, whoever Mike wants to call you. So I have a question for you, Mike. As a pathetic color commentator, did I just ask a pretty intelligent question?
What was your question?
Whether it was the AFF or whatever it is more based on talent or marketing.
He sure did.
As a pathetic color commentator who generally is thought as a bumbling idiot.
I've never called you a bumbling idiot or a color commentator. That was Bobby.
No, I never said that either. That's
probably Bobby and Brian. Probably Bobby and Brian both did that. So.
Mike, he called himself that.
He read into your comments that he was a pathetic idiot. But
he called himself a color commentator. I never said that.
Nope. I got a text message, Bobby, that'll come back and haunt you, buddy. I've got that, and I printed that puppy off.
Well,
I can stand that.
What's wrong with being John Madden?
And kill you.
What's wrong with being John Madden?
Kill your credibility.
What's wrong with being
John Madden? Exactly. That guy made a fortune off.
All right.
Outside
Are we done with your betting odds?
Yes.
Well,
on this day,
let's go to
Bobby.
On this day.
On this day. We got a lot of on this day.
Yeah,
a lot of
good
stuff
stuff
on this day today.
We do because
yeah.
We do because we had all the days where this fell on the Daytona 500 winner. So we have all those that we can go over. But there were two more, I believe two more. Yes, there were two more that I wanted to just mention. And in 1996 on this day, this was the day that the Cleveland Browns fired Bill Belichick. That's
idiots.
Idiots. He was 36-44, which I didn't realize that he had that many games with them. He had 80 games.
He started coaching them in 1991. And when he took them over, they were coming off like a 2 or 3 win season. He turned that team around. He had them in the playoffs by 94. He beat Bill Parcells in the playoffs, ended up losing to the Steelers. And the next year is the year the Browns moved. And the thing people forget is, what are you giggling about? Does somebody
I have a question to ask you when you get done talking. I'm trying to be patient and wait for my question.
Okay. But the impressive thing was, no, it's not. But the Browns, it's Steve. But the Browns were actually one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl headed into that year. And they were in first place, I think, 8 weeks into the season when the move was announced and then it fell apart. But Art Modell's stupid. Cleveland's stupid. The Browns are stupid. So go ahead.
So my question
now
is,
number two. Oh,
hold on.
Hang on. Let me ask my question to Mike. I have a question. So, Mike, does this just kind of legacy and signal how stupid some owners and teams are that they can't see 5 feet in front of them? And what
this signals is this. Mark Modell got
I didn't even finish my question.
I know, but I know where it's going. Go ahead, then. Finish your question.
No, the question is that they couldn't see that where Belichick's future lied and couldn't stick with him and let him go. And then what Kraft does in New Orleans and where it ended up. I mean, just to say that some teams are doomed to failure because of idiot owners.
This tells this. Art Modell was deeply in debt because he's really bad with his money. He liked to gamble, stuff like that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but once you've lost a lot of money, maybe you should stop. And when you look at this, the only reason he fired Bill Belichick, it comes down to they were moving. He wanted a completely fresh start. So that's why he got rid of Belichick. And basically, Art Modell is an idiot because Art Modell is an idiot. Has nothing to do with the Cleveland Browns organization because the Browns organization now has no connection to that Cleveland Browns team.
Right. So you can kind of sum it up by saying that one man's trash is another man's treasure, huh?
No, I could sum it up
what
like
was Modell's trash was Kraft's treasure.
Well, the other thing you got to give Modell is he brought Billick in, and he actually won a Super Bowl a couple years after being in Baltimore. So you can't rip him too bad, except for the fact that Cleveland never should have been moved, and the only reason they were, excuse me, is because he was bad with money.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to ask that question. That's another color commentary question. So, just from a color guy.
Go ahead.
That's all.
Bobby.
I would be remiss if I didn't say this one, especially having Mike as the guy I'm talking to. So I've got to ask this one or go over this one. 1978, this was the day that Leon Spinks beat Muhammad Ali in 15 for the heavyweight boxing title. This was Ali Spinks won, right? And
yeah.
Wow, I mean, was this fixed? I've heard that a little bit, that it was fixed. I doubt it was, but I mean, I have heard
this
that.
This is the thing. I don't think it was fixed, but I think there is a case to be made that maybe Ali, wanted to be the only 3-time champion in heavyweight history. Leon Spinks was 8-0. If I remember right, before this, he'd beaten Alfio Righetti. He fought a draw with Scott Ledoux, which Scott Ledoux won the fight, but Leon Spinks was being quickly ushered into this. The reason he was being quickly ushered is Leon Spinks had a problem, especially with driving. If you remember, he used to get pulled over like every week. You'd see something on the news back in. But he was 8-0, 8-0-1, or 7-0-1. I think it was 7-0-1 because he had to draw with Ledoux that he really lost. He was a 1976 Olympic gold medalist. Nobody thought he had a chance, and he basically just outworked Ali. Ali put up a valiant stand at the end of the fight, but yeah, I think there's a case to be made that it wasn't fixed, but it set Ali up to fight a guy who was nowhere near on his level, to fight him in September of that year and become the 3-time heavyweight champion of the world, which nobody had ever done it 3 times. And only Floyd Patterson, I think, had done it twice up to that point. So I would say there's a case to be made that something shady could have happened there. But it also is possible that Ali just didn't train, didn't pay attention, got upset. Then he came back and he trained and he didn't get upset. So I think it could go either way. I find it hard to think a guy like Ali is going to lose on purpose, though.
Right, and it was the end of the line right there. You know, that maybe his disease that we now know he had, maybe that was starting to creep in, and you know, because that was the end of Ali. I mean, he should have already retired after, you know, even before that. So it's, you know.
Yeah, actually, he should have retired after the 3rd Frazier fight or after the Foreman fight.
Yeah, 75. I think after the 3rd Frazier, that would have been a great time.
Yeah, because if you watch him after that, he struggled with guys like Jimmy Young. I mean, Ernie Shavers gave him all kind of hell. And the thing was, the Ali Foreman fight was the biggest blow to his health because of the way he won it. Because after he won that fight like that, by standing there and just taking punches, wearing people out and throwing some back,
rope-a-dope.
He basically spent, except for that second Spinks fight, he spent the next 4 years doing that. And that's not good for your health.
He also spent the next 4 years reaping the benefits of being the champion all those years, and he made a ton of money. You know, he made a lot of money those last 4 or 5 years.
He didn't, but he did. Don King made a lot of money. Don King,
that's sad.
And I know a guy that worked for Don King that always told this story, and I've heard other fighters. Tim Witherspoon, who was the heavyweight champion of the world at one point, was on our show 3 or 4 years ago, right at the start, one of the first guys we interviewed. But he was in Deer Lake when Ali fought Holmes, and he said Ali told him all kind of stories other fighters did. But Don King would walk in, and he'd walk into Ali's hotel room, and Ali'd ask him after the fight, "Where's my money?" And Don King owed him like $1 million. Don King would throw $200,000 on the bed and say, "You want to just call it even?" And Ali would say yes. And Don King's reason for doing that, because I've also talked, we had Baines Martirosyan on, who could verify this story the other night, who got recently screwed over by Don King. And Don King used to go into amateur boxers' houses that he thought were going to be great fighters. And he'd throw $50,000 on the counter in front of his parents. He'd put the $50,000 down. He'd put the contract down. And he'd say, "You got 1 minute to sign the contract and you get the money. If you don't, I'm taking it and leaving." So basically, these people would sign their kids' lives away to Don King for $50,000 in cash. And King's point, what King always said was, you know, most boxers are broken, poverty-stricken. They've never seen $50,000 or $20,000 or $80,000. He said, so I'd just walk in, give them cash. They'd rather have $100,000 in cash than a check for $1 million, because they'd never seen that much cash before. So Don King also brutally murdered a couple people. I think Gerald Ford or Richard Nixon pardoned him for it. But yeah, he's a guy that manslaughter a couple times. He running numbers, beat a couple men to death that owed him money. But yet he's been allowed to go ahead and screw people over forever. And he's in his 90s, and I think he proves that the devil does exist. And I don't think the son of a bitch is ever going to die.
Wow, that's amazing stuff, Mike. I didn't know any of that stuff, and crazy, but
I am a fountain of useless information, Bobby. Steve can vouch for that.
No, I think you're out of
well, and now,
Now I'm going to go through
to
all the Daytona crap you got here.
Just pick one.
exactly.
Just pick one.
Real quickly, just run through. David Pearson wins in 1976. Nothing big. David Pearson won most of the races
It's big
he
if
ran
you're
in.
David Pearson.
Pardon?
It's big if you're David Pearson or part of the Pearson family.
Yeah, he's Silver Fox is the second winningest driver all time in the history of NASCAR. Petty wins in '81. That's the year I won the national championship.
I thought you were going to say Leon
some in
Spinks
common
won
there.
it in 1978. Go ahead.
No. Here's the deal. '87, Bill Elliott wins at 176.263. That is the second fastest Daytona ever run. The fastest was Buddy Baker in 1970, I think was the year, but 177.602. And both of those races led to, because of that year too, Bill Elliott set qualifying records. His fastest track lap ever run in a NASCAR was Bill Elliott at Talladega at 2:12.809. And then the fastest qualifying speed was Elliott at Daytona at 2:10.304, which led to the implementation pretty much of restrictor plate racing as we know today.
Right, is that
because
why,
the cars were basically
I got a
getting
question
too
for
fast.
you, Steve. So I'm going to try to see if I can be a caller guy. So if you look at 98, 172, 2004, 156, now 2009 it drops to 132 miles per hour. Is that from restrictor plates?
Restrictor plate racing. The Rex. You look at well, I mean, yes and no, because we go back to the same thing we talk about the AAF. It's marketing, because the most compelling races to watch every year are the short tracks, Bristol, Richmond, and Martinsville, and then the super speedways where there's restrictor plate, where they keep the cars bunched together and people know there's going to be wrecks, because people ultimately, they want to see crashes and wrecks. You don't want anybody hurt, and you certainly don't want any. And the great thing about the price that Dale Earnhardt paid was that he created NASCAR to be so much safer than it was when he passed away in 1998. The sport ultimately became 2 or 3 times safer in terms of, helmet utilization, Hans devices, roll cage protection, things like that. And it cost the sport its greatest hero to get those changes implemented. So you see the wrecks, and you think about a guy hits a concrete wall at 200 miles an hour and gets out of his car and throws his helmet at the guy next to him. Think about that. I mean, you hit your garage door at 15 miles an hour and you get a stiff neck and go for workman's comp. And these guys do this crap, and they roll their car down the straightaway at Daytona 8, 9, 10, 12 times. The car flips up, and the safety features, because of what Dale Earnhardt paid, but because of those speeds that Elliott achieved in '87, before they had really a real hold on restrictor plate racing, it really changed the sport. So yes, you've seen, because I look here at Matt Kenseth wins at 132.816 in 2009. That tells me that there was probably 20 or 30 red flags or yellow flags in that race.
So what is it normally? Is the normal now like 150 or?
I think probably, it's probably between 150 and 130 right now, because the big one occurs, and but now what they do now is NASCAR's gotten smart enough. When the big one occurs, they just red flag the race. They stop it, so those laps don't count against your average speeds. Rather than waste the time running around.
So is this a good rule to restrict it or not?
Well, it's a marketing rule.
That's not what I'm asking. Does it make the sport better to watch, worse to watch, or what?
Yes, it makes the sport better to watch. Yeah, yes, it does. And
does it make the race more competitive?
The drivers hate it. The drivers hate restrictor plate racing like there's no tomorrow, because they say it takes the car, it takes the driver out of the car. They say that you or I or Bobby could go to Daytona and get in one of those cars and drive that car at 185 miles an hour around that track, because the banking on the track is so steep.
Would you fit in a NASCAR?
Well, if you would fit in a car, okay, let's take. But any of us could get in there for the most part and drive that car at that speed, because basically, with the way the banking is on those tracks, the car basically steers itself. You basically on those tracks Sunday, they'll just put their foot on the floor, and you'll watch the tachometer on the car, and the only time they'll lift is if they're getting a draft off somebody else. and their closure rate is faster than what the guy in front of them is driving. Then they've got to lift. Then the minute they lift, they're screwed because now they're out of the draft. So there's strategy there a little bit that you don't want to lift because you don't want to lose that 1 or 1.5 mile an hour. But it doesn't take a rocket surgeon on those tracks to be able to drive a car the way these cars are set up. The aero packages on these cars and the way that the track is banked and the restrictor plates to just keep everybody together, and the drafting process, it's not that complicated to do. So, I know it's minutia, but
no,
to me it's
because
fascinating.
my comparison here is this. It's basically what the NFL's done. They've tried to make everything safer. You take away the big collisions to make it safer.
Mm-hmm. Right, and you take away the essence of the sport, in my opinion. Going fast is what racing is all about. Who has the balls to take a car 212 miles an hour around that track? Risk is an inherent process. And they've made these cars so safe that most likely the survivability in this day and age is much greater than it was 20 years ago. But the market, they found the marketability of it of saying, we keep all these cars an inch apart from each other and are running in a big pack, either on a short track like Bristol, which is a half-mile track, and you've got the first car crossing the start-finish line before the 43rd car even gets down the backstretch because the track's just too short. And you're lapped in about 5 laps if you're the 43rd car because the first car's got clean air, he's going. So, but it's marketability for the sport. So it's much like football. You're right, it's the same thing. We'll use the safety factor to make it better to market the sport. And that's what's happening in football. That's definitely what happened in NASCAR. But the drivers hate Talladega and NASCAR because there's no quality in terms of what you do as a driver. It's pretty much just luck of the draw where you are when the wreck happens. And it's the same probably in football now that you just got my athletic ability has been negated because of the rule changes in the sport. I'm a hard hitter. I want to hit you. I want to punish you. I'm willing to take that punishment. And they've taken that out of the game too, in my opinion. I'm done.
All right. So let's do this. We're going to wrap the show up, but let's wrap it up.
Well, you got to say happy birthday to Kenny Anderson, your boy.
Yeah, happy birthday, Kenny Anderson. I already texted him today.
He's 70 years old today. Come on, you got to talk about
I
that.
texted him, and he thanked me.
Okay, that's a big deal. Kenny Anderson's one of the greatest Bengals quarterbacks of all time. Maybe the greatest.
I was going to try to throw
Bengals
you a bone
by
wrapping the show up with each one of us predicting a Daytona 500 winner, and you screwed it up. But all right, Steve, who wins the Daytona 500?
Kevin Harvick.
Bobby?
Denny Hamlin.
And I will say Joey Logano.
Yeah, all 3 great choices. Yeah.
All right. And if I win,
let's see how it plays out, guys.
Into that. But,
my favorite driver is Chase Elliott, but I think he's just going to be too aggressive and get caught up in the big wreck. And he wants to win too badly to be smart enough to know Harvick is a silver fox. Hamlin's due to win, and Logano has proven that he can win, and he's a great restrictor plate racer. And so they're all great choices. Thank you for the show, guys.
Yep.
Hey, Brian, thanks for being on the show with us, Brian.
He just called you Brian,
Bobby.
He did it again. So now he can't bring me up because he did it twice. All right. To check out Bobby Sheridan, go to Twitter at Sheridan Report. You can find him on the internet at thesheridanreport.com. You can find Steve Risley at srisley34. You can find me at Grilling Truth. Make sure you go on iTunes, YouTube, go everywhere, rate us, give us a thumbs up, give us a check mark. We'll be back on Monday. We got a few interesting guests planned next week. Make sure you check out Steve and Alex's NASCAR show, which you can get on thegrillytruth.net right now. And you can hear me and Jeremiah tonight at 11 live on Inside Boxing Daily. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for the week.
Mike.
What?
Could you ask them if they could maybe rate how much they like my color commentary?
Yes, do that, people.
So I get some feedback, so I feel some kind of worth.
All right.
Because being color
Mike,
commentator, it's like you're kind of you're an idiot when you're a color commentator.
Don't forget what, Bobby?
You're just talking about,
Don't forget the IU show tomorrow. They got a game tomorrow, don't they?
Yeah, so we're not looking forward to it. Maybe to win, and then we will.
We're going to get beat. IU's going to get beat.
Yeah, we gave up, Bobby. We gave up. We're going to start doing an
We're
Indiana
done with
State
that.
Sycamore show from here on out. All right, guys. We're going to wrap the show up for the week. I want to thank everybody that listened. You can hear us on iHeart, Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So, for Brian Rauf, Bobby Sheridan, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.